So thank you for having me. My name is Pat Schendel, and I am a ceramic artist, so I've been told. And I am now in my 70s. I began when I was about 22, just out of nurse's training and wanted a hobby. And they had a nice cultural center in Kamloops where I was training, and so I began right there taking an adult ed class, and it gave me a real escape from the kind of work I was doing, the stresses that nursing has, and it was a very creative outlet. So I've been with it ever since. I continued working with clay on the side all through my career, which was 34 years long. And then when I retired, I thought I might get more involved, but in fact, it's been a little bit less. So it's interesting how life changes. I did get married, and my husband's a photographer, and so he has taken pictures for me, and it's been a great asset. My pottery changed when I took classes at Kwantlen College, and that was in 1992 in Surrey campus. And there was this huge outpouring of variety and all kinds of things you could do with clay that I hadn't had a chance to experiment with. So it was just really overwhelming, and it was so nourishing for someone who is, belonging for all that. I was allowed to dabble in different things then, because now you were finished your main meat and potatoes of ceramics, and then you were moving on to your personal expression. So I got to try crystallines, and that's where I fell in love with them. And it was just a few samples in the class, and that was it. I was hooked. So I had the library books, but they were few and far between. There was a John Conrad that wrote up some recipes and some ideas of how to fire them, and latched onto that, and actually they worked. So, and then I went to Maui one time, and my goodness, they had a studio of ceramics, and a fellow at Tech had this wonderful book here called Macro Crystalline Glazes by Peter Ilsley. They just had every color under the sun. I went to England, met Peter. He also came to Canada and gave a workshop at Shadbolt Centre. So he was a big hero of mine, and lovely man. Diane Craber of Toronto, our own Canadian, has written this book and a second book. And she inspired me a lot too. And she talks about how crystals grow. And I thought that's very interesting, because we don't get to see them in the kiln as they're growing. And this one is a book that was written by a couple of Americans, a father and son, the Prices. And they did a huge amount of testing. So the crystals are actually zinc silicate crystals. And they grow very much like you see on a window pane when there's frost, and the ice is growing on the window. And that's how they layer up and grow, is in that same kind of crystal formation. They do have their favorite temperatures. So some like a little slight higher temperature, and some like middle and some lower. But that's coming with practice and with just experimentation, really. So generally, the higher you are in the range, you're getting the first crystals forming, which are the rods. And as you go down in the scale, you're getting them all piling up and joining to it, and you're getting more circles of crystals. So you are going to be growing these crystals after the peak of the glaze has melted, the top temperature of your glaze tolerance, and then you're bringing it down maybe 150, 200 degrees quite quickly. You take out the plug holes on the kiln just to let it cool down quick, and capture it again at the temperature where you want the crystals to grow. So then you've decided on that, and programmed it into your computer kiln, and it will do this for you. And so it's going to grow through the growth of the crystals in a period of time between 2.5 hours up to 4 hours. So I think with the larger pieces, you want a longer time, and with the smaller ones, you want a shorter time, because the small pieces, if you're growing for 4 hours, are going to just completely butt up into each other and cover the piece. With the larger pieces, you can give them that time and that space. So after that 3 or 4 hours, however long, your temperature is just going to cool down naturally. So it's like the kiln is off and you leave everything plugged up and it's cooling naturally. So you've got to wait then another 24 hours and then open and see what you got. There will be differences from the top shelf to the middle to the bottom, even if you use the same glaze, because there's variations in the temperature in every kiln. So it's always very fascinating and interesting to see the results. These are a few samples that I have. Something with a broad shoulder is very good. The glaze is a very fluidy glaze. It has to be fluidy in that the crystals need that liquid state to last for a while. And so it is runny as well. So that can create problems, and we learn to deal with that. But so you have to put more glaze on the top and the shoulders, because you're going to lose a lot of it as it's running down. And then you're going to have excess on the bottom. And you do need a catch basin to catch the extra overflow of glaze. And so we make a saucer for it that's a little wider than the base, and we put it up on a pedestal. And some people make their pedestals in one piece with the plate. So it's just a little plate and a pedestal, and then they put a wadding there and sit their pot on top. I usually get away with just the plate and some wadding material underneath. And then that is what will separate it away. So, but the shoulders help to slow the flow of the glaze. So that's why I'm showing these ones particularly, because it just has that ability to slow it down a little bit. It's not running off as fast, and you're getting some big crystals growing around here, around the sides. This piece I wanted to mention has a blending of two colors, which is obvious, but that was something I didn't do anything of for a long, long time. So it's just an evolution for me. But I also, I love the wave pattern, and being near the ocean and on holiday in Maui, I got this idea to carve a wave. This one is my wave pattern. Crystalline glazes actually started their journey in about 1850. So they had to have a porcelain first, and porcelain, of course, was already produced in China, but England and other countries in Europe didn't have it yet. They had to discover it and produce it. And it needs crystallines need a very clean surface, very fine surface to grow on. And you don't want an interaction with the actual body of the clay and the crystals. So something with an iron in it would do that and interfere with the crystal growth. So it's a very pure substance. So they had porcelain, and they were making their English porcelain chinas. And in the factories in Germany and England and France, they were all experimenting. And so they were finding that crystals grow by accident, and maybe we can increase our knowledge on them and learn to grow them ourselves. At first they were happy accidents. Some didn't like them at all. Maybe they mapped it up, and that was a flaw. But they eventually came to the artists in the group and the chemists in the group that they were something good that we should really work with. Well, I love nature, having grown up on a farm and seeing things growing and being outside so much. And then the flowers, of course. It was just a big focus growing up. And that stayed with me. It just brings an energy into your life to have a lot of plants around and to grow things and the beauty of them, arranging flowers. My dad was into exhibitions of gladiolas and dahlias, and he showed for 50 years, and I was always his little helper beside him. And it gave such a joy to everyone to see the flowers. It made us feel good that we had produced these flowers and that we had arranged them in a very satisfying, beautiful way. And we even made for exhibition and we got prizes. So that was all very fulfilling, and so that's been a part of me. I just think that now I'm making my flowers with clay instead of in nature, though I have a nice garden too. So this piece, I've already done the carving. You can see what I have in stock. And before you do that, okay, this is a clay, this is all porcelain. And yesterday I made these saucers. And then they have to dry to a certain stage before you can handle them, obviously. So by this morning, they were dry enough. And then you have to trim the bottom and tool out this bottom edge and put your name on it. That's most important. So that part was done early, and then within an hour or so after that, I was able to start tooling the edge. So you see that I've got them fairly evenly dispersed. So for that, I use what's called a decorating graphic. And it has all the numbers around here, points where it's divided into 5 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 8, however you want. So it's just a fantastic extra tool that makes life a lot easier. So to start with, then I put this on, my name at this side, line it up, and then I just mark the points that I want. I'm going to have 5 petals or 3. I thought maybe I'd do this one with 3. I mark that. And the in-between ones as well. And there's the 3 there, the in-between, the 3, the in-between, and there. So I've got those marked. I'm going to just transfer them to the other side here. So this clay is what we call leather hard now, leather hard stage, and you can carve into it without it being brittle and cracking. This morning it was even damper and it worked even better, but now it's still just okay. And then it has to be kind of beveled down. You want a beveled edge and then let the glaze wrap over the edge better. it pretty well what I want. I sponge down the edge and it just cleans it all up.